Alright, let's dive into something that's been buzzing in the radio world lately, and trust me, it's more than just a local story. Kristin Klingshirn, a name many of you might recognize from the Bert Show, was recently let go from Q99.7 after just 6 months on the job. Now, if you're thinking, oh, just another radio host change, hold on, there's a lot more here than meets the eye. Personally, I think this is a perfect example of how the media landscape is shifting, and not always in ways that make sense to the people who've dedicated their careers to it. First, let's set the stage. Kristin spent 14 years on the Bert Show, a staple in Atlanta radio, until it was abruptly shut down last fall. She then landed an afternoon slot at Q99.7 in January, which felt like a fresh start. But here's where it gets interesting. Just 6 months in, she's out. What makes this really interesting is the timing. 6 months is barely enough time to settle into a new role, let alone make a significant impact. So, what's going on behind the scenes? From my perspective, this isn't just about Kristin or Q99.7, it's about the broader cuts happening at Cumulus Media, the company that owns the station. Cumulus has over 400 stations nationwide, and they're clearly tightening their belts. But here's the thing, radio is still a massive part of how people consume content, especially in local markets. So, why are they cutting talent like Kristin, who has a proven track record and a loyal fan base? One thing that immediately stands out is the lack of transparency. Kristin's Instagram post was heartfelt, but it also hinted at the sudden nature of her departure. She mentioned needing time to process and discuss plans with her husband, which, honestly, feels like a universal experience for anyone who's ever been blindsided by a job loss. What many people don't realize is how common this is in the media industry. Companies often prioritize profit margins over the people who've built their brands. If you take a step back and think about it, this raises a deeper question. What does this mean for the future of radio? With streaming platforms and podcasts dominating the audio space, traditional radio stations are under pressure to stay relevant. But cutting experienced talent like Kristin doesn't seem like a winning strategy. In my opinion, it's a short-sighted move that could alienate listeners who've grown to trust these voices. A detail I find fascinating is how Kristin's story reflects a bigger trend in media, the devaluation of long-term relationships. She spent 14 years on the Bert Show, yet when the show ended, she had to start over. And just as she was rebuilding, she was let go again. This isn't just about her career, it's about the instability many media professionals face today. What this really suggests is that loyalty, both from employers to employees and from audiences to stations, is becoming increasingly rare. What makes this even more intriguing is the role of local media in communities. Radio hosts like Kristin aren't just voices on the airwaves, they're part of the fabric of their cities. They connect with listeners, share stories, and create a sense of belonging. When stations cut these personalities, they're not just saving money, they're risking losing that connection. Personally, I think this is a wake-up call for the industry. If radio wants to survive, it needs to rethink its approach. Cutting costs by letting go of talented people might provide short-term relief, but it's not a sustainable strategy. Instead, stations should be investing in their talent, leveraging their unique strengths, and finding new ways to engage audiences. As I wrap this up, I'm left with a thought-provoking question. What's the future of radio if it keeps losing the voices that make it special? Kristin's story isn't just about one host or one station, it's about the broader challenges facing an industry in transition. And if we don't start addressing these issues, we might just wake up one day to a radio dial that feels a lot emptier. So, what do you think? Is this just another sign of the times, or is there a way for radio to reinvent itself? Let me know in the comments below, I'd love to hear your thoughts.